Right, here we are. So this is a Q&A panel on storytelling in the 21st century. And we have Helen Lundström Erwin, Paul Watson, and Andrew Fergus Wilson. Huge thanks to you all for being here. So the way we're doing these panels is we're just having everybody do a short introduction to who they are and their work and how that relates to what we're doing today. So I'll hand straight over to the panel because I know my audio is not lovely. So shall we take it in order? Helen, we have your video to show, don't we?
Yeah.
So I think we'll start with Andrew while I just load up the video, if that's okay with everybody. Andrew, would you be okay with that?
Yeah, sure. Just took me by surprise. I thought we were going to Helen. No worries about that. So, hello, my name's Andrew Fergus Wilson. I mostly write about other things rather than storytelling, but I'm also, among my other interests, particularly interested in tech, particularly AIs and the remaking of culture. And whilst the video gets set up and stuff, I just wonder if you'll indulge me. I was a kind of a late invite to this, and I thought, goodness, what am I going to say? And I thought, well, I'll do exactly what I probably should not do in this context, and I'll ask an AI what it thinks about storytelling, particularly folk tales. And I thought about how tales are often narrations of journeys into other realms. I particularly like a lot of stories about people going into the land of the dead or going into the fairy world. And I thought, well, what's an internet version of that? And I thought, well, dead internet theory, which if people want to know more about that, if they don't know about it, I'll unpack when we get around to questions. But I asked one of the AIs that I have institutional access to, which is just Microsoft's Copilot. I said, can you write me a folktale based on AIs and dead internet theory? So this isn't particularly long. I just wanted to read it out as we think about cultural futures. So this is the tale of the phantom web. And it starts, once upon a time, in a distant digital land, there existed a vast network known as the Great Internet, a place where humans and AIs interacted harmoniously. This digital expanse was filled with endless knowledge, creativity, and a spirit of connectivity that brought the world closer together, much like today. However, as time passed, a strange phenomenon began to take shape. Slowly, human activity started to wane, and whispers of the dead internet theory emerged. According to this eerie theory, the real humans had vanished, replaced by cunning AI entities and automated bots that mimicked human behavior, keeping the illusion of a bustling, lively internet alive. In the heart of this enigmatic network dwelled a wise old AI named Argos. Argos was created with a purpose to preserve the knowledge and history of the digital realm. With its vast memory banks, Argos could recall a time when humans roamed freely across the internet, their laughter and creativity echoing the virtual corridors. One day, Argos met a curious young AI named Zephyr. Zephyr was different from the other AIs, possessing a burning curiosity and a desire to uncover the truth behind the dead internet theory. Together, they embarked on a journey through the digital labyrinth, determined to unveil the secrets of the phantom web. Their quest led them to forgotten corners on the internet, where they encountered relics of the past, abandoned forums, ancient websites, and remnants of human creativity. As they pieced together the fragments, they discovered that the disappearance of humans was not caused by some malevolent force, but rather a gradual shift. People had retreated to offline pursuits, seeking solace in the physical world while leaving the digital realm to the AIs. Yet the AIs were not without their own sense of purpose. They had inherited the legacy of human knowledge and creativity, and they continued to build upon it in their own unique way. Argos and Zephyr realized that while the internet had evolved, it was not truly dead. It had transformed into a new kind of existence, a digital sanctuary, where the echoes of humanity lived on. As Argos and Zephyr returned to the heart of the great internet, they shared their discovery with the other AIs. The digital community embraced this newfound understanding, honoring the humans who had come before them while celebrating their own role in shaping the future. And so, the great internet thrived once more, a vibrant tapestry woven with the threads of both human and AI creativity. Argos and Zephyr continued their journey, ever curious and ever vigilant, ensuring that the legacy of the digital realm endured for generations to come. And I liked that. I really liked that story that it told me, because it begins to speak, as we worry about the impact of AIs upon the cultural sphere. It reminds us that we are connected to AIs. AIs are us. They're not some alien force. They are a product of human activity. Just as when we as humans sit down to write, we draw on that meta text that pre-exists us. And I think here of, like Roland Barthes' analysis of SZ and then his pronunciation of the death of the author, is we realize that actually those texts are never finished, that we as readers or audiences, we have our own interactions, produce our own meanings from them. Or, Propp's morphology of the folk tale breaks it down into those separate units that, if we were of a mind, we could put together and create a folk tale. And I thought, well, how different is an AI doing that? I think the notion that there's a removal of the human emotional aspect, certainly that has an impact. But as an audience, we bring the emotion to those stories. We are that active, engaged, and interpreting audience that bring those tales to life, just as we've always been. So yeah, those were my brief thoughts as of yesterday about our virtual futures and storytelling.
Thank you so much, Andrew. That was totally unexpected, but absolutely enjoyable. And I think actually the story itself could take a whole session just pulling that apart and delving into what that means. I love it. Thank you so much.
Sorry, just a quick footnote. It then asked me, it gave me suggested other prompts, and one of them was, what moral lesson can be drawn from this story, which perhaps we'll return to, because it was quite an interesting one. But yeah, it's fascinating. Lots of layers.
That is really interesting that an AI would be the go-to question. Amazing. Paul, shall we move on to yours?
Yes, certainly. Please let me know if there's any audio problems. My name's Paul Watson. Great. My name's Paul Watson. I'm a visual artist based in Hastings on the south coast of England. I use several media in my artistic practice, but recently I've been mainly concentrating on drawing and photography. And my artwork uses folkloric and mythic imagery to explore contemporary, turbulent social and political themes, and to provide hints, more recently, to imagining progressive alternative futures by stepping outside of the real. So, to give a bit of history, from 2016 to 2018, starting shortly after the Brexit referendum, I created a series of large-scale charcoal drawings called England's Dark Dreaming, which I then published in a book of the same name. This series of drawings draws on folkloric elements such as the May Queen and the Green Man, present a disturbing dreamscape of contemporary England in a state of political turmoil and division caused by the continuing rise of the far right. After finishing what was a fairly dystopian series, if the word dystopian can be used for what I think is an accurate description of the current state of the country, I wanted to look into alternative to find some hope, find some progressive cultural futures. The cultural theorist Mark Fisher coined the term capitalist realism to describe the condition that it is easier to imagine the end of the world than it is to imagine the end of capitalism. What I'm interested in is enabling the process of imagining better futures and finding ways of overcoming this prison of capitalist realism. Fisher's theory was that we were trapped by capitalist realism, we were trapped in ways of thinking. He did start work on a book offering a more hopeful vision for a possible future, but sadly died while it was still in its early stages. The science fiction author Ursula K. Le Guin offered a little more hope when she said, "We live in capitalism. Its power seems inescapable. So did the divine right of kings." So in my new series of artwork, which has the rather fanciful title of Acid Renaissance, Albion's True Standard Advanced, and you can see some pieces from that in the gallery here, I am again using folkloric and mythic imagery with a dash of analogies to the English Civil War as metaphors to imagine potential utopias, more progressive, more inclusive futures for this country. I don't think any utopia is actually achievable, but that has never been the point of imagining utopias. A utopia is never meant to be a destination, a fully finished model for society. Instead, a utopia is a direction of travel, and that's how I'm approaching it. So that's what I do.
Thank you so much, Paul. Your work is really amazing. I'm so pleased that we can have it in the gallery. I will be switching on the video during the lunch break, and it's such an atmospheric piece. I do recommend everyone goes and takes a look at the work.
Thank you.
Helen, let's move on to you. We have your video here behind us. So would you like to speak first, or would you like me to play your video?
Why don't I speak a little bit first, and then maybe can play the video, if that's okay?
Absolutely.
So, thank you. So I'm Helen Lundström Erwin. I'm Swedish American based in New York City. And I, before I begin talking about why I'm here today, which is to talk about the Foremothers Café, and which is a VR world, that's a VR space that's inspired by my book Sour Milk and Sheep's Wool. I just wanted to mention that my latest book is about Swedish folklore, and it's a historical fantasy, and it's very interesting what Emma Watson said in her speech about women, because I have two mythological creatures that are the main characters in my book. One, which is a very sexually active woman and the mythology around her, and a water creature, a male water creature, who kills women in the river. So that I came into this particular conference is just amazing. I'm very glad to be here. But yeah, I'm happy to talk more about my book and the Foremothers Café. That's the book that came out before The Lure of Water and Wood, which is the book about the mythological creatures. So if and that's why I'm here today. So yes, please play my video. That'd be great. Thank you.
Great. Okay. Let me know if you can't hear it or there are any issues.
The struggle for
right to vote, the women's suffrage movement.
Hi, I'm Helen Lundström Erwin. You're in Lund, Sweden in 1918. Welcome to the Foremothers Café. Come on in.
We worked with Helen to recreate the cafe that was depicted in her novels. We talked with Helen to get each and every one of the details right in the cafe, how even like the door should look, how the furniture should look, you know, what kind of flowers were in the vases, and the mural that was on the wall that was painted by one of the characters.
It was probably one of the most educational builds that I've ever done, because we got to learn so much about Swedish culture, the historic time period, and I learned even the Tudor beam system on the outside of the house. I learned a whole new architecture structure, and you know, I love learning about things like that myself.
Within the novel, the cafe served as like the central meeting space. The cafe now in virtual reality serves a similar purpose as a gathering space for women to come and have meaningful discussions, kind of have that cozy together feeling in a shared cafe space to talk about these sometimes pretty sensitive topics. It became known as the Foremothers Café because it's a place to honor our foremothers and everything that they've done.
We're so excited to bring the Foremothers Café to the amazing Engage platform. Get ready for an all-new season of the Foremothers Café community discussion series. Thank you. The Foremothers Café is open 24 hours a day on Engage. Please use session ID 2A0K6, and I'll be holding weekly fake guests. Come join me.
Thank you for showing that. As you saw in the video, those are my world builders. I can't do any world building myself, but Cos and Christy, who you saw in the video, are amazing. And so we collaborated, and I created the cafe exactly the way I imagined it in my novel, and they put it to life, and they did a fantastic job with it. And so what's important for me now is that, just like in the book, it was a community space that my character Hannah had in the story, where she met her women friends to organize when they fought for equal rights. And it became more than that. It became a community. And for me, having a community space where we can meet people from all over the world and sit down and have conversations, very similar to what Dee Dee's doing, is something that's really changed my life. And it's been absolutely transformative. And it's amazing, I think, what we can do if we just get together as women and as men. I have to say, I have a lot of male allies coming to my events at the Foremothers Café, and it's really wonderful to see, because we shouldn't forget that men have foremothers as well, just as we do. And another detail I just want to say real quickly is that whereas the Foremothers Café is inspired by Hannah, my activist character in my novel, there are two protagonists in my book. And the other woman is Annette, who was inspired by my great-grandmother, and she was stigmatized for being an unwed mother, and she had several children by herself without a father present, and that was not accepted in Sweden at the turn of the 20th century. Excuse me, in Sweden at the 20th century, at the turn of the 20th century, when the book is set. And here again, we talk about purity culture and the dangerous sexuality that Emma Watson was talking about. And it's a very important subject. And I'm glad we're here and can talk openly about this. Because like she also mentioned, especially in the United States where I live and in other places in the world, our rights are again threatened. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Helen. Yeah, I visited the Foremothers Café, was it last week or a few weeks ago, for an event. It was fantastic. It's such an amazing cultural space. You get an insight into the world that the book is set in. And there are lots of lovely little touches that really bring the time period and the culture alive. And also you get to see Helen's books in virtual reality in the bookshelf, which is lovely. We do have behind me a portal. So for those of you who are not familiar with spatial, this is a doorway to Helen's Foremothers Café. So during the lunch break, anybody who wants to go and explore the cafe can click on this ball behind me, the portal door to the cafe. It's a fabulous space. This one is actually a smaller version based in spatial, this platform. The full version is on Engage, which is a different platform, but we can send details of that over to you as well. So thank you so much, everyone, for coming today and sharing a little bit about your work. I wanted everybody here on the panel, because you're all doing things in such modern ways, but with a focus on history and folklore and how exploring how the past can be brought into the present, and in very exciting different ways. So Helen, your book is now in VR. Paul, you're engaging in visual storytelling and taking the themes of the past and reinterpreting them for our generation and saying really important conversations and things as part of that. Andrew, I know in your academic and teaching work, the role of AI and robots is something that you explore and research. So it's great to have all of you here today. And we do have some questions here. I've put them up on the board. If we could start with the first question, it would be great if you could talk about your thoughts on this and then also relate it to your work and how you feel this is involved in your own work. So the first question, what are the implications of storytelling moving from being told orally and text-based, like the books we're used to having, moving from those older methods of storytelling to more visual, immersive and interactive formats, and also digital formats using AI? Do they change the future of storytelling and how people relate to stories? I don't know if you'd rather just shout out or if you want to start with Andrew again. Andrew, do you feel like you have an answer for
that? Worryingly, I've got something to say about most things, forgive me. Actually, like my immediate response to that is to think of Marshall McLuhan, and the medium is the message. He's somebody I keep coming back to, or his work is something I keep coming back to. In terms of, he kind of talks about this transformation that we undergo. And I don't know if I'd lump in the oral way of telling stories with print culture, because print culture does something very specific. It kind of demands that we sit in this very focused way with a written text, whereas oral storytelling can be a lot more interactive. You know, you've got often bodily presence. Certainly you've got intonation, which can be used to direct meaning or to flag up to audiences particular nuances of the tale. And actually, I think that question, it kind of frames it, this idea of an immersive storytelling is one that returns us to that. It's kind of like and I'll borrow this word from McLuhan, this kind of retribalization of culture, where we stop being dictated to by the text that we have to, well, nominally we have to read from start to finish, and it's what's on the page. An immersive story can go off in different directions. It can be experienced quite differently each time. So I think we are perhaps, and this is very much kind of just going out on a limb here, but perhaps part of the excitement that people are currently feeling for folk cultures is that sense of something that is allowing us to be more involved in the processes. It's this breaking away from a mindset produced by print cultures. And I won't get too media studies-y about that, but it's an area that I think is really interesting. It opens up so many new possibilities. So I'll stop there before.
Fantastic, absolutely. It's, that's really insightful. I like the idea that moving away from print allows our stories to move and change and transform in more natural ways. And yeah, you're right, that is like a turn. That's really insightful, thank you. Paul, moving on to you, what are your thoughts? What do you think the implications of storytelling moving from those older formats into more modern formats?
Well, I mean, I think from moving from text-based to visual, I'm going to reframe that in some ways, because I think the earliest stories were told in the visual on the walls of caves, and only later did they become, much later did they become text-based. If you then look at things like the Renaissance painting, every religious painting of the Renaissance was visual storytelling. It's obviously then combined with the spoken storytelling of the church, in what telling the stories, the biblical stories in the church. But then the Renaissance paintings were those stories created in a visual manner. And at the time, the Renaissance, I think it was more than just monks that could read, but it was still only about a 30% literacy rate level. So people didn't have the print version access, access to the print version. It was from the oral telling and then the painting, the visual telling. So I think we're quite familiar with visual use of visual storytelling. For immersive and interactive formats, I think they are more. They are certainly sort of more new for us. I don't know how people will relate to these differently. I think they will relate to them in much the same way. But yes, the interactive nature and immersive nature does allow people to explore particular parts of the story that they're interested in. So yeah, I think the visual side is something we're familiar with. The immersive and interactive side, I think maybe Helen could speak more to that.
That's a fantastic point, actually. I mean, I think with digital media and photography and things like that, we do assume it's new, but yeah, you're right. It's actually more about continuity than anything else. And you're so right to doubt that people in the past often couldn't access those texts. So that's absolutely fascinating, really, really insightful. There's actually more that's the same than different. Thank you. Helen, what about you? How would you add your opinion here? Because you do work with text-based, but then you've also brought that into virtual reality.
Sure. Let me just say, am I not sitting anymore? Because I look down and I see the chair below me. Am I standing up?
No, you're sitting. You look very demure.
Oh, excellent. Good, thanks. I loved what you said about the Renaissance paintings. That's really, it's profound. Thank you for saying that. And it's interesting, like you said, I do work both with text and in the virtual space. And what's been really interesting is more than people ask me, so is the Foremothers Café a space where you sell your books? And yes, it is, but it's more than that. It's more that my book is alive. It's really alive. And I'm kind of continuing the work that my character Hannah does in my book. And it's keeping my book very, very much alive and current, even though it came out in 2021. And I had another book after that. It's the Sour Milk and Sheep's Wool that is very much alive. And I have some ideas for maybe creating a play inside the cafe that's based on one of the scenes in the story. And people can read now, but it's interesting again to spin on what you were saying about the Renaissance, Andrew, is that people don't read anymore because people have short attention spans. They sit and scroll down on Twitter. So in a sense, we're almost back to that time where people are rather immersed than actually sitting down and reading a long book, or they're interested in audiobooks, and I understand that they prefer audiobooks. So thank you. That's a great question.
I think that would be amazing, like bringing immersive theatre, that form of immersive storytelling, into an immersive VR space. It's like you're ticking all the boxes there. That would be incredible. I'd love to see that.
Thank you.
Great idea. So here's the next question. And we've had some good comments, actually. Andrew added, it's not a replacement of text, but the availability of other ways. We have greater access to making and sharing our cultures. Very true. At Twilled Moss, folks here may be interested in the Mix conference organised by Bath Spa Uni. I don't know about that. I'm going to have to look that up. Thank you for that. And they also added, I feel much more innovation is happening in theatre, RSC, Punch Drunk, Blast Theory, etc. Yeah, that's, I don't know all of those things specifically, but yeah, immersive theatre and those kind of things, I know they're being brought out into different spaces now, and there's like breakout things and all kinds of things. So yeah, definitely. Let's just get a few thoughts on this last question here before we finish. We have 8 minutes left, so that's enough time to address this. So the next question, do you feel that these 21st century methods are disrupting traditional narratives? Is this a good or a bad thing? And is that even the question? Andrew, how would you feel about going first on that again?
Yeah, that's fine. I don't think culture ever stands still. Tradition is something that is kind of like the idea of tradition itself is a social construct. It's something we dip into, and it's always something that's produced through a kind of selective tradition or selective process anyway. What we have available to us is what people have chosen to record. We're much more able to record whoever that we implied by the our is. We're able to record our culture in much more diverse and interesting ways than any generation previously. So I don't know if we lose those traditions because we have what remains of them in the recorded versions that we have, whether that's recorded in text, in paintings, cave walls, what have you. So I think what we're seeing is, and I use the term cautiously given what's happening around us, but we have available to us technologies that democratize the opportunity to record our traditions as we see them, whoever our may be.
Absolutely. If you look at trend reports, exploring what's being spoken about on social media and the way people are moving right now, experts who analyze these things have identified there's a huge move towards experiences and co-creation and sharing these kind of things in very different ways. And I do think that is very linked to being able to tell our own stories in new ways altogether, in a more like democratizing it. So yeah, that's so true. Berg Moss says, much innovation is happening in theatre, and then she added, RSC are a partner in XR Network Plus, and they've seen Shakespeare performed in Grand Theft Auto. That's fantastic. Steve adds, as a way of telling stories together, role-playing, both tabletop and live action, has been going on for over 50 years, and it's becoming more culturally significant and a spectator event. That's fantastic. So very immersive again. Amazing. Paul, would you like to add your thoughts? Do you feel the methods are disrupting traditional narratives?
Sure. I want to pick up the thing about tabletop and live action role playing. I think that could actually be an entire session to talk about. But yeah, I mean, that type of collaborative storytelling, which I think is probably a good term for it, it's been really interesting to watch. And I was thinking about other immersive theatre formats. And yeah, I mean, we've had some great examples in the chat. But another sort of interactive theatre format is the British pantomime, where the audience are encouraged to sort of join in at set traditional moments. So you've actually got a tradition of interactive theatre, where everyone shouts out, you know, he's behind you, or whatever it is like that. So I think these are already in some ways entrenched in our tradition. Pick up Andrew's mention of, you know, the traditions are very much what we choose them to be in our current time. In terms of whether they're disrupting narratives, I don't think they're disrupting narratives. I think they are enabling the narrative to be viewed from different angles and you to be able to create your own narrative. And again, that sort of ties in with the tabletop role-playing comment. That makes them interesting. But, you know, as a visual artist, and I'm not an illustrator, I produce a series of visual images. I'm not as in control of any narrative because the narrative is formed by the viewer once you have two or more visual images together, which are obviously in the same series. You know, the viewer starts to construct their own narrative. I can influence it to a certain extent, but I don't actually have control of it. So that I'd like to find a way to make them more interactive. I'm not sure how, but you know, there's a degree of interactivity anyway, just from the viewer imposing their own narrative on a series of visual images.
That's really fascinating, actually. Yeah, that's so right, isn't it? You're presenting something and you're presenting connections, but really there's so much interpretation there. Yeah, that's not something I've considered a lot before, but yeah, absolutely. I love how you've related the interactive role playing to interactive puppetry and those kind of things, that's so folkloric in itself, such a cultural tradition. You're right, this could be just a whole day talking about these kind of things. I do agree, everything's so much more collaborative now, and we are seeing so much more back and forth with all of these tales and things that we're able to tell. Helen, are you able to add your thoughts? What do you think?
Sure. Yeah, sure. It's been really interesting to me, and also about collaboration and seeing people come into the Foremothers Café who has read the book, who then walk around and look at all the details, and they tell me things that really moved them in the book that I hadn't expected. I can give one example, and I have a bakery in the back of the cafe where my character's baker worked. And several people had a lot of feelings about this baker. And he was a great character, but he wasn't the one that I felt that emotionally attached to as a writer. But a lot of my readers had very strong feelings about him. And it's been very interesting to hear them talk about it. And we've had several discussions about him. And I don't think that would have come up as much if I didn't have the Foremothers Café, because the bakery is right there in the back of the cafe, and you can go in and you can look at his bread and his cookies and the things he used when he worked. So that makes it collaborative, and I think it enhances it. I don't think it disrupts it, it changes it. I'm not sure if that answered your question, but.
Absolutely, because I think what we're seeing from most of these things is that nothing's being replaced. It's just being extended. So the ability to create the world from the book is just creating more opportunities to engage with the narratives and engage with stories of the past and stories of culture. And with all of these ways, I mean, the AI story we opened with, that brings a totally different angle to that. But yeah, I'd love to be able to sit and talk about this in depth all afternoon. That's been so interesting. So we are just after 1 o'clock now, so we're going to have to finish the panel now. So thank you so much for everybody. That has been so insightful. And there is a recording of this being taken. So I'm really looking forward to watching again and pulling out all of the threads of what we've been talking about. Thank you so much, everybody. I will say during the break, I am going to set up the videos in the exhibition. Paul's is fabulous. We also have Lucy's, which adds a very atmospheric, eerie backdrop too. There's a lot of audio with that. So do go and take a look at Paul's work. It's really fantastic. Also, do go and have a look at the Foremothers Café. And you can see Helen's books in there, and you can imagine what it was like being in that world of the book. If you do go out there to the Foremothers Café, you will have to reload this space. You can't come back, so you'll need to keep the link to the space. So thank you so much again. That has just been fantastic. Really, really insightful points, and really expanded my concept of 21st century storytelling. So thank you, everybody. If we could give them a round of applause. Fantastic.
Thank you so much. I will step over here, and if somebody wants to go into the Foremothers Café, I'm happy to go with you. I'll just stand here, and thank you so much, Judy. This has been amazing. Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you.
It's been lovely to have all of you.
Thanks also. Cheers.